There he is.
There he is.
What's that?
Jason? Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Caitlin. It's Jason. Yeah. Are we on mute or can I put the sound on?
You can turn the sound on. Now we're going to start my podcast.
Yes. Okay. Thanks. Yeah. Are we on mute or can
Jason,
I put
can you
the sound
hear
on?
us? You can turn the sound on. Now we're going to start my podcasting.
Okay. Thanks.
Jason, can you hear us?
Okay.
So you have to get Jason on. He still can't hear us. Jason, can you hear us? Caitlin, you might want to call him and make sure he's unmuted on the buttons on the bottom.
Peggy, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes, we're working with his sound right now. I'm not sure if it's an internet connection.
Jason, can you hear us?
To get him to talk.
Peggy, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, we're working with his sound right now. I'm not sure if it's an internet
Caitlin?
connection.
Yes. So do you have your sound all the way up? Because we can hear you, but I don't think you can hear us.
I can't hear anything.
We can hear you, Mayor.
Okay.
Yeah, but we
Caitlin?
can hear you.
All right. I think I got it.
So do you have your sound all the way up?
Now you can hear.
Okay, now I can hear.
Perfect.
Because we can hear you, but I don't think you can hear us.
With plenty of Zoom meetings and all kinds of WebEx meetings and everything else, I've never had this kind of an
We can
issue.
hear you, Mayor.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, but
how's
we can hear
everybody
you.
doing? All right. I think I got it.
Fine.
You got it?
Now you can hear.
Okay, now I can hear.
All right. Perfect.
All right. Well, let's, what do we got? About 5:42.
With plenty of Zoom meetings
Call
and
the
all
meeting
kinds
to
of
order.
WebEx meetings and everything
And,
else, I've never
I guess
had
we'll
this
start
kind
with
of
the
an
pledge. I pledge allegiance.
Well,
to the
how's
flag
everybody doing?
of the United States.
Thank you.
Fine, Mayor.
And
And
to
to
We're doing great.
which is
Thank you.
One
One
nation.
nation.
All right. Well, let's, what do we got? About 5:42. We'll call the meeting to order.
All right.
And,
Do we have any additions,
we'll
deletions,
start
or
with the
substitutions to the agenda?
Pledge allegiance.
No, sir.
To the flag.
No, sir.
United States of America.
Okay.
And
Let's
to
begin with comments from the public.
Yes, Mayor.
One
Thank
nation.
you.
Under God.
Robert De Bastiani
Liberty
from
and justice
800
for
Ocean
all.
Drive says, I see no reason to
All
not
right.
open
Do we
the
have
age
any
for
additions,
exercise,
deletions,
running,
or
walking,
substitutions
and/or
to
water
the
sports
agenda?
only. No,
The road
sir.
has significant
No, sir.
crowding between walkers, runners, and cyclists while the beach
Okay,
is
let's
empty,
begin
has
with
more
comments
breadth,
from the
enabling
public.
better social distancing.
Yes, Mayor, I have a
Opening
few.
the beach for exercise only, no
Robert
sitting makes sense
Dave
and will dilute the
Bastiani
congestion
from
on
800 Ocean Drive
I would suggest
says,
we
I
open
see no
the beach
reason to not
immediately
open
under
the
these
beach for
guidelines.
exercise, running, or walking, and or water
Next one
sports
is
only.
The road has significant crowding
Keelman
between
from
walkers,
410
runners, and
North
cyclists while the beach is empty, has more breadth, enabling better social distancing. Opening the beach for exercise only, no sitting makes sense and will dilute the congestion on Ocean Drive. I would suggest we open the beach immediately under these guidelines. Next one is Vano Keelman from 410 North Lyra Circle. As a high-risk COVID-19 gentleman of 69 years, going on 70, I formally object to the closing of Juno Beach for so long, 6 weeks, without any hard statistics on whether the closing of specifically Juno Beach has been meaningful or beneficial. Have Jacksonville and St. Lucie, as well as Flagler County COVID-19 cases, been augmented directly by the beach openings there? It is much healthier for residents to walk, run at the water, and enjoy the ocean at Juno Beach than to be restricted to traffic Ocean Drive and other town streets under the unnecessarily harsh regulations in force. To get around the rules here, people contribute to climate change by driving to less restrictive jurisdictions. I recommend the town of Juno Beach seek an exemption from the powers that be, state and/or county, for residents to be able to access the beach as soon as possible. It can be easily managed because Juno Beach is mainly accessed by walkways at intervals along its length, and police already watching for interlopers under current rules can monitor resident IDs as needed. Diana Moslaw from 241 Mercury Circle 3. I was selected to review the results of the recent survey. It is clear that the folks who responded loved Juno Beach. It was heartening to hear all the positive responses about our town. They love the small town atmosphere, the beach, and Pelican Lake. And there were many positive comments regarding you, our public administrator. This is a good time to know that there is happiness in our community. My hope is that people will be smart when our beach is open. Thank you. Jay Zuckerman, 500 Ocean Drive. I just want to take a moment to invite and encourage all my fellow residents of Juno Beach who have not yet completed the 2020 census survey to do so now. It is extremely important that everyone be counted as the census guides the allocation of federal and state funds over the next 10 years that affect our quality of life, such as healthcare, roads, schools, and emergency services. The current coronavirus pandemic makes clear just how essential these services are to us individually and as a community. For those of us with more than one residence, please select your residence in the town of Juno Beach so that our community will receive its proper allocation of federal and state funds in the coming decade. The survey is straightforward, non-intrusive as to personal information, takes about 10 minutes to complete, and may be completed from the safety of your home. You may complete the survey online, by phone, or by mail as specified in the mailings received from the Census Bureau. If you have lost your census mailings, you may still complete the survey simply by going online to 2020census.gov or by calling 1-844-330-2020. Census responses are completely confidential and cannot be shared, so please help our community by completing the census survey today. Marianne Hosta, on behalf of the steering committee of the POA, would like to make this statement in support of a group of citizens who refer to themselves as the Ecology Group. Their interest is to preserve and conserve Pelican Lake for plants, wildlife, and humans alike. They are not alone, as according to our POA survey, among the foremost concerns of the residents of the town of Juno Beach is Pelican Lake. The Ecology Group has spent time and money consulting with experts who can provide scientific data. The POA has also assisted them in writing letters to the town and has been helping with the required fees. The desire of the Ecology Group and POA is to have the water of the lake analyzed in order to gather scientific data to find the explanation for the dying flora and diminishing fauna as it was observed by the town residents. Such a process involves money, and our survey reveals support for this expense. We request the town's assistance with the Ecology Group to improve the viability of a precious town resource. Jim Ferguson, 391 Sunrise Way. As you know, the management of Pelican Lake and its environs is a matter of particular concern to our citizens. There are diverse, thoughtful people in our town who have been doing a lot of homework on lake issues and have a lot to share. They have some very reasonable and well-researched proposals to make. Surely the constraints imposed by the presence of the virus should not result in important town business being put on hold for the indefinite future. I urge you to put the management of Pelican Lake on the next council agenda. D.D. Halpern, 410 Apollo Drive. Like to make a quick public. I'd like to reiterate my preference to see council discuss the P&Z meeting schedule for May and June at tonight's meeting. I believe that P&Z meetings should be via a virtual meeting platform. We need to start embracing the new normal and moving forward with important issues. Phyllis Brandoin, 605 Universe Boulevard. Our Juno Beach Eco Group members are diligent, informed, and investigative, truly for the benefit of Juno Beach Town and its citizens and visitors. Kindly journey with our eco group and update the town's knowledge and thinking what a clean environment can do for the health of our community and beyond. You could refer to Farmer's Footprint and Zach Bush, MD. Let's begin the circle of regenerative landscaping here in Juno Beach. Thank you. Catherine Johnson, 800 Ocean Drive. Please open Juno Beach. Diana Davis, 440 Sunset Way, wants to express my appreciation for the virtual town council meeting being held to address important issues to our town. Last month, I submitted written comments requesting that the town of Juno Beach stop use of copper sulfate as an algicide and stop use of Polaris AQ, a non-species specific herbicide to treat shoreline and to develop sustainable management plan for vegetation and shoreline habitat of Pelican Lake. Biologist Sean Patton, Stocking Sat LLC, who is consulting with members of the Ecology Committee, concerned residents, believes the use of the copper sulfate causes harm to the benthic community of the lake. The town council approved limited use of the non-species specific Polaris AQ in November 2019 that resulted in piles of dead vegetation around the lake shoreline. I do appreciate that there has been some manual removal of the dead shoreline vegetation. She's requesting a copy of the annual drainage report for Pelican Lake and its surface water sampling and analysis results that are included in the report as per policy 8.3 of the Juno Beach Comprehensive Plan. If the report is available online, a reference to its location is fine, as I do not need a hard copy. I'd like a response as to where to find this report. Nancy Wolf, 1613 East Way Drive. In light of rapidly changing public health norms, remote learning and working, people seeking refuge in or deciding to move to less densely populated parts of Florida, and ongoing interest in Florida and new developments, should Juno Beach form a committee to study some of these issues and make recommendations to council? Members would be residents and may have backgrounds in public policy, technology, sustainable development, public-private partnerships. Michael Clarjan Arconada, 70 Celestial Way. Dear Mayor Halpern and Town Manager Lobello and Town Council members, this email to be read to be the official record along with the chain of previous related emails in today's Juno Beach Town Council meeting. Juno Beach Town Council meetings without the generated input of the people in real time, not just email communication through a teleconference system due to COVID-19 pandemic, are a miscarriage of government and violation of the rights of the people. It was agreed in the last meeting that to guarantee health and safety for all, the April council meeting and successive meetings would be carried out via teleconference. You have had more than 4 weeks to get ready for the teleconference council meetings and have not followed through as agreed by Juno Beach Town Council. Therefore, I'm asking hereby that you implement teleconference.
We're going to move on to item 2 on the agenda, the COVID-19 update, and we'll recognize Town Manager Joe Lobello.
Jason, could I ask one question, please?
Sure.
I'd like to know whether Caitlin might distribute copies of those comments to us
with that
tomorrow,
being the end
so
of
that
the
we
comments from the
see
public.
them. And
We're going to move on to item 2 on the agenda, the COVID-19 update, and we'll recognize Town Manager Joe Lobello.
Okay. Joe?
Jason, could I ask one question, please?
Council. How's everybody doing?
Sure.
I'd like to know whether Caitlin might distribute copies of those comments to us tomorrow, so that we
The
could
town has
see them.
activated its emergency management operations on March 13th.
I can email them out.
We are
That'd be
working
great. Thank you.
7 days a week. As you know, we participate on a daily 10
Joe?
o'clock call with
Thank
all
you,
the
Mayor. Thank
county
you, Council.
officials and all the other municipalities. There's about 70 people on those calls on a daily basis.
I just want to go
What we
over
discuss is how to
briefly
get
an update.
PPEs.
The town has activated its
supplies. As you
emergency
know,
management
that's a
operations
very
on March
demanded thing,
13th.
for first
We are working
responders. Those
7
are
days
the
a week. As you
face
know, we
shield,
participate
the
on a daily 10 o'clock
N95
call
masks,
with all the
gloves,
county
et cetera, et cetera.
officials and
We've
all
been
the
very
other municipalities.
successful
There's about
in getting
70
these
people on
supplies
those calls on a daily
and
basis.
distributing out
What we
to the
discuss is how to
municipalities
get
and the county.
PPEs
We also
supplies, as you know,
look
that's
at
a very
testing
demanded thing
sites,
for first
see where they are
responders.
needed,
Those are
and
the
also review the
face shield,
testing
the
results.
N95
We check
masks,
where there's hot
gloves,
spots,
et cetera, et
what we
cetera.
can do with these
We've been
hot
very
spots.
successful in
And
getting these
I'm glad to
supplies
report we do not have any hot
and
spots in Juno
distributing
Beach.
out to the municipalities
We
and
also
the
do a
county.
little bit of establishing
We
and
also
mostly
look
reviewing
at testing sites,
emergency orders.
see
Can
where they're
somebody put
needed,
theirs on
and
mute?
also
Everybody
review
else,
the
I'm hearing a lot of
testing
feedback.
results. We check
Thank
where
you.
there's hot spots,
Um,
what we can do with these
What we're
hot
doing
spots.
with those emergency orders
And I'm glad to
mainly
report we
is
do not have
going
any
over
hot
them,
spots in
seeing
Juno
how to
Beach.
implement them, discussing
We
the
also do a little
language,
bit of establishing
and
mostly
we also
reviewing
are talking about future opening up
emergency orders. Can somebody
orders
put theirs
at
on
this
mute?
time.
Everybody else, I'm hearing a lot of
We have a
feedback.
very good working relationship.
Thank you.
We resolve a lot of issues
What we're
on
doing
these
with
calls
those
on a
emergency
daily
orders
basis.
mainly is
About the
going
town's
over them,
operations, let me
seeing
go
how
there
to
first.
implement them,
We're
discussing
handling
the
all town
language,
business.
and
We
also are
residents should be
talking about
assured that
future
all
opening up
public utility services,
orders
water,
at this time.
wastewater, garbage
We have a
collection,
very good working
recycling,
relationship.
all are working on their
We
regular
resolve a
schedules.
lot of issues
The
on
building
these calls
department
on a
is
daily
fully
basis.
functional. We are
About the
processing
town's
permits,
operations, let me go
handling
there first.
inspections, and
We're handling
reviewing
all town
plans.
business.
The code compliance
We
department
residents should
is
be
still
assured that
serving the
all
town,
public
taking
utility
complaints,
services,
doing
water,
inspections,
wastewater,
and writing
garbage
notices
collection,
of violations.
recycling, all are working on their
Public Works
regular
Department is
schedules.
fully functional.
The
They're
building
handling
department is
and
fully
maintaining
functional.
all town
We are
grounds and
processing
buildings.
permits,
We're a
handling
little short-handed
inspections,
due to
and
turnover.
reviewing plans.
As
The
other
code compliance
cities have
department
done, we've
is
hired a
still
janitorial
serving the
service
town,
during
taking
this
complaints,
emergency to
doing
keep the town
inspections,
center clean
and writing
and
notices of violations.
disinfectant. We
Public
are
Works Department is fully functional. They're
dealing
handling
with this
and
on a
maintaining
short-term
all
basis,
town
this
grounds
janitorial
and
service.
buildings. We're a
The
little
police department,
short-handed due to
they're doing a
turnover.
phenomenal job.
As
They are
other cities have
officers are
done, we've
keeping us
hired a
all
janitorial
safe.
service
They're out
during
in the
this
community.
emergency
They're
to keep
talking
the
to
town center
residents
clean
and our visitors
and
about social
disinfectant.
distancing and other
We
precautionary
are
measures. And their
dealing
lobby, by the way,
with this
is
on a
open
short-term basis, this
Monday through
janitorial
Friday,
service.
9 to 5.
The police department is doing
All
a
department heads,
phenomenal
such as
job.
finance,
They are
administration,
officers
legal,
are keeping
even
us all
legal,
safe.
clerks department
They're
are
out in
all
the
working
community.
long
They're
hours,
talking
extended
to the
hours.
residents and our
Even
visitors
through,
about social
even though we work
distancing and
partially at
other
home and
precautionary
partially
measures.
at the town center,
And their lobby, by the way,
we're
is open
answering calls 7 days
Monday
a
through
week,
Friday,
emails,
9 to
very
5.
responsive. The
All
staff is very
department heads,
responsive
such
to
as
me and
finance,
to the community, so I
administration,
thank them very
legal,
much.
even legal,
They're doing
clerks
an
department
excellent
are all
job.
working long hours,
We
extended
have
hours.
6
Even
people,
through,
6
even though we
employees
work
out
partially
on
at home and
COVID-9
partially at
concerns.
the town
3
center,
of them are back, thank God.
we're
But we have 3 of them
answering
out
calls
right now.
7 days a week,
The
emails,
town
very
center is still
responsive.
closed to the public, as
The
you all
staff
know.
is very responsive to
How we
me and to the
conduct
community,
business
so I
is we
thank them very
accept
much.
deliveries
They're
downstairs
doing
of
an
tables
excellent job.
downstairs.
We
Right
have
outside the lobby,
6
they
people,
can leave
6
building
employees out
plans,
on COVID-9
all kinds of
concerns.
deliveries are
3 of them
there.
are back,
They can
thank
knock on the
God, but we
door.
have
We'll
3 of
meet
them
them
out right now.
outside and talk to them
The
face
town
to
center
face,
is
as
still
long as we're
closed to the
adhering to
public, as you all
social
know.
distancing.
How
Or
we
they can call
conduct
us or
business is
email
we
us. But
accept
we are here in
deliveries
the building.
downstairs at tables downstairs.
Now, I'd like to go
right
over
outside
these
the
emergency
lobby.
orders because they're
They
very
can
confusing.
leave building plans,
These
all
governor's
kinds of
orders
deliveries
and the county
are there.
orders, what
They
they're
can knock
telling
on the
us,
door. We'll
they're
meet them
not
outside
negotiable at a municipal
and
level.
talk to them face to face, as long as we're
There's
adhering
no
to
home rule here.
social distancing.
So
Or they
basically,
can call us
if
or
the
email
town council
us. But we are
decides
here in the
tonight
building.
that let's be less restrictive on
Now,
our
I'd like to go over
businesses,
these emergency orders because they're very
let's
confusing.
open our beaches tomorrow.
These
cannot do
governor's
that.
orders and the county orders,
All we can
what
do
they're
is
telling
be
us,
more restrictive.
they're not
And
negotiable
let me give
at a
you 2
municipal level.
examples of some cities that have been
There's no home rule
put some
here.
orders in effect that are
So
more
basically,
restrictive. We
if,
do not
if the town
recommend them,
council decided
but
tonight
I'd like to go
that
over them.
let's be less
To give you some
restrictive on our
examples.
businesses,
One town has put in a curfew.
let's open our
Again,
beaches
we don't believe we don't have a
tomorrow.
lot of crime.
We cannot do
Crime has
that.
been low. We don't recommend
All we
that
can
for
do
our
is be
community.
more restrictive.
Another city
And let me
has
give you 2
changed the wording
examples
on
of
face
some
masks
cities that have
to
been,
shall instead
put
of
some
should
orders
wear
in
a face
effect that are
mask.
more restrictive.
As
We
you
do not
can imagine,
recommend
this
them,
has caused a lot of
but
confusion
I'd like
in
to
that
go
town.
over them
Actually, it's a
to
city.
give you some examples.
And
One
they
town has put in a
are
curfew.
getting a lot of calls
Again, we
from
don't
their
believe we
police
don't have a lot of
department stating
crime.
that this
Crime has
person
been
should be
low.
arrested,
We
that
don't
person should
recommend
be
that for
arrested
our
because they're not
community.
adhering to that order.
Another city
Again, we're
has
not
changed the
recommending
wording on face
that
masks
order for our
to
town.
shall instead of should
What we
wear
are
face
recommending
masks. As
for
you
our
can
town
imagine, this has
is
caused a lot of confusion in that
we
town.
keep on those daily
Actually, it's a
calls
city.
and do what we
And
can
they are
on
getting a lot of
making
calls
sure that
from their
we
police
tell our
department
county
stating
and
that
other
this person should be
municipalities that
arrested,
we're
that
not the
person
same
should
as
be
Dayton
arrested because
Broward.
they're not adhering to that order.
Let's look for
Again,
some
we're not
flexibility
recommending
on opening our
that order for our
beaches,
town.
being less
What we
restrictive
are
on our
recommending
businesses.
for
Let's
our
start
town
reopening.
is
That's what we're
we
doing at a
keep
staff
on those
level.
daily calls and do what
Obviously,
we
at a
can
council level,
on
if you
making
believe
sure
what,
that we
as
tell
I
our
believe, that
county
these
and other
things should
municipalities
happen
that we're
sooner
not the
than
same
later
as
on a
Dayton
safe
Broward.
manner, then we should write a
Let's
letter
look for some
to
flexibility on
the
opening our
appropriate people
beaches,
at a
being
council
less
level.
restrictive on our businesses.
Most importantly,
Let's
staff
start
wants to take
reopening.
this time to thank the
That's
town
what we're doing
council
at a staff
and to
level.
thank the
Obviously,
community,
at a council
because
level,
without
if you
your
believe
excellent
what,
support,
as I believe
um,
that
thank God to
most
this
importantly,
day,
staff
we have
wants to take
still
this
low
time to thank
numbers,
the
and we
town
want to keep it
council
that way.
and to thank
So we want
the
to thank
community,
everybody for what they're
because
doing, keeping us
without
all
your
safe.
excellent support
We're not over this yet.
and
So
dedication,
please
we
do
wouldn't
your
have the low
part.
numbers
If you
we
got any
have
questions,
now. There's
we're
hundreds
available
of cases just
24/7.
right outside our town.
Joe, I hate to
And
interrupt
we've
you, but I'm getting
kept our town
messages
safe,
that people are
thank God,
hearing
to this
two
day.
people talking
We
at
have
once.
still
So I
low
don't know,
numbers, so we
Caitlin, if
want
you
to
can
keep it
check
that
with the
way.
tech guy and see if it's
So we
possible
want to
to
thank everybody for
find
what
out
they're
what's going
doing,
on.
keeping us all
So
safe.
the public,
We're
the
not over
general
this
public,
yet.
they're
So
actually hearing
please
two
do
people
your
talk
part.
at
If you
once.
got any questions, we're
I'm
available
sorry, Joe, I just wanted
24/7.
to make
No,
sure.
thank you.
Joe, I
Thank you
hate
for
to interrupt
interrupting.
you,
That's
but I'm
important.
getting messages that people are hearing two people
That was
talking at
basically
once. So I
just to
don't know,
say
Caitlin, if
thank
you
you
can
all to
check with the
everyone.
tech
This is
guy and see
uncharted
if it's possible
times,
to
and
find out what's
I'll be
going
glad to
on.
take some
So
questions.
the public, the general
after.
public, they're actually hearing two people talk at once. I'm sorry, Joe, I just wanted to make
No,
sure.
thank you. Thank you for interrupting. That's important.
No, I
That
do
was
not.
basically just to say thank you all to everyone. This is uncharted times, and I'll be glad to take some questions.
I'm sorry, real quick. Does anyone who's participating in the meeting right now, does anyone have YouTube on a separate browser
Okay,
by any chance?
for Joe. Peggy?
Because that might be what,
No, I do,
I do
Joe.
not.
Thank you so much for the update.
okay.
I was just
I.
curious.
Just
We
wanted to
realize
check.
that
Thank
everyone
you.
is secure in their 40-hour salary. That would apply to their position, and they should be. But I was wondering how effective it's
Okay.
been with
For
their
Joe.
productivity
Peggy?
working from home. So what I'm asking basically is if
I do,
you
Joe.
typically
Thank you
put
so
in a
much for the
40-hour work
update.
week, were the employees able
I
to
was
do
just
that from
curious.
home?
We realize
I'm
that
sure
everyone
it's
is
a
secure in their
difficult
40-hour
transition to begin with,
salary.
because they
That
don't
would
have
apply to
all
their
the
position, and they
information
should be.
or materials to
But I was
conduct a
wondering
normal day.
how
And as we look forward, now is the
effective
time
it's
that we
been
can actually
with their
learn
productivity
how
working
to
from home.
effectively allow
So
more
what I'm
virtual
asking basically is
streamlining,
if you
more
typically put in a
efficiency working
40-hour
at
work week,
home.
were the employees able
And
to
if we
do that
were to
from
have
home?
a more
I'm sure it's a difficult transition to begin with because they don't have all the information or materials to
do we have a
conduct
plan
a
in
normal
place?
day.
And if
But as
not,
we look
perhaps
forward,
we
now
should
is
be
the time
looking
that
at
we can
one.
actually learn how
I
to
wanted to
effectively allow more
mention that.
virtual streamlining, more efficiency
And then I
in
also
working at
wanted to talk a
home.
little bit about
And if we were to
COVID-19 and
have
our email
a
blasts.
more
And I think that, and this is off track
different,
just
a
a little
different
bit,
price
from an
if our town
operational
needed to shut down
standpoint,
totally for an
I
extended
think
period
that
of
our
time.
town site,
Do we
needed
have
to
a plan in
more
place? Mention that. And then I also wanted to talk a little bit about COVID-19 and our email blasts. And I think that, and this is off track just a little bit, but from an operational standpoint, our town site, we needed to have more information on our email blasts. I really believe we can learn from neighboring municipalities for the future on how to better connect with our citizens. And that's something that we can talk about later because at the last meeting, I talked about the website not popping. I'd personally like to see how other towns have implemented their website, even though I know we had concerns about lawsuits and we actually had a lawsuit. But those towns face the same concerns. So I would really like to see if we can get a consensus or ask Joe to show a picture of our website and also an interactive look at some neighboring towns' websites for the May 27th agenda and maybe put that on the agenda for that date.
I'd be happy to put that on the agenda. We could show you. We're putting on all the updates are on the website. But your first question is an excellent question. We struggle with that on a weekly basis. The first thing we did was we actually we suspended all personal leaves, and there is a large percentage of the council. I'm getting a lot of emails here. Everybody hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you, Bill.
Okay.
Yes.
A lot of the employees actually are working more than they should, and then some employees are not getting enough work because of just what they're doing. So we're actually spreading out the work more on a daily. We keep doing it to try to take some of the load off of the people that are working the 70, 60 hours a week and putting more of the load on the people that are not working as much. But it's tough with Public Works, as you can imagine. They're working and they have to be here to work. When you're answering phone calls and a receptionist, it's hard to give them more work. So we're actually balancing that out on a daily basis. We meet on that 3 times a week. But an excellent question. But we're actually more busy now than we would be if we didn't have an emergency.
Right, and the hope is that for the future that we can look at, if we had to be more efficient from a productivity level, what can we do in the future? And just looking at that also.
Thank you. Yes, we are doing that. Thank you very much.
Okay, Stuart, questions for Joe? You're on mute, Stu.
Am I unmuted now? Should be.
Yes.
Okay, great. My question to Joe first question is what are the lessons that you've learned by your interactions with the other town managers in adapting to the new reality of government under COVID?
Well, that's another good question. The first thing we did was all the North County managers, besides being on these daily calls, we started a daily 4 o'clock little phone conferencing because we wanted to see how we're handling things throughout all the cities in the North County. We're not doing this on a daily basis anymore. We're doing it more as needed basis, but we're sharing a lot of information. As I said, these are uncharted times. Some of us had pandemic policies, but many of us did not. So we're learning a lot as we go. But we are all working together, sharing information, and our main focus obviously is the safety and health and the welfare of our community. So we're doing that, and we're just all laser focused on that.
And my question for Jason is simply, I thought we were going to vary the order of discussion. I was happy to go second, but I thought that was a change you were planning on implementing.
Yeah, thank you, Stu. It is a change I plan on implementing. Under the circumstances, it's we're not exactly seated in the traditional order in the council chambers. So please let's excuse my discrepancy there, and we can change it up. I think it's a little easier when we're all sitting there looking at each other, or if we have seats that have been switched. It was just simply going in order. It looked like Peggy had questions for Joe, and I thought it best to let her jump in first if she wanted to. So do you have any other questions for Joe, or should we move on to Frank for this?
I'm happy to move on. I'm really more concerned with the next issue. I'll let others question on this one.
Okay. Frank, do you have questions for Joe based on the update?
Yeah, I have a quick question for Joe. Juno Beach has been one of the lowest percentages of people that have returned their census. Is the census that low because they're not counting people who've returned their census, but they haven't returned with Juno Beach being their selection? I mean, we have a huge amount of people that are snowbirds, and if we only have a 40%, we're almost one of the lowest that have turned in the material that we were supposed to do for the census. But is that maybe because we have so many people that are not counted as Juno Beach because they're picking other places where they have their second home. Are you aware of how that's done?
Yes, I am, Frank, and that's an excellent question. Thanks for asking that. The census goes out to every address. So let's say you own 2 condos, one here and one in New York. If you decide to fill out and use the number that's on the census form in New York, you are not counted as filling out the one at the address here. So that's one of the reasons why our percentages are lower than other communities, because we're very transient. Another reason is because a lot of our residents live at the waterfront. I believe it's about 400, so that they are not counted the same way as other residents. So there's a couple factors, but mainly the first one, because every address gets a census form. So if you decide to fill out the one in New York or up north or at another address, and even if you use the Juno Beach address, you're using that number at that address, so it's counted there, not for us. If that
Okay, I got it. Juno Beach usually is pretty good at following up on stuff. So, okay, but this is fine. This is what you'd expect from such a large percentage of snowbirds. Okay, thanks, Joe. That's it.
Thank you. We're tracking pretty close to 10 years ago. We were about 52% of self-responders. I think we're at 46% right now.
Right.
So we're tracking close. And as you know, the date, I should mention this, the date was extended to October 31st. So everybody out there who has not done their census, please do it now and use Juno Beach as your permanent address. You have until it was extended from April 1st to October 31st. Thank you, Frank. Good question.
Joe, this is Stuart. One follow-up. Why is the Waterford treated differently as far as their people are concerned?
Okay, thank you, Stu. That's it's because they actually are the paperwork's filled out by the administrator there, not individually.
Implying that we should get full participation from the waterfront.
I would think it would be 100% because it's done administratively, but I don't know if it was counted at this early time and the percentages. That's what I'm saying. It's just an unknown.
Okay, Frank, anything else for Joe?
That's it.
Okay, Jim, questions for Joe?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, my questions have been answered, so I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, Joe, I've got one question. You had a recommendation along the lines of staying on the daily calls and emphasizing the need for flexibility and drawing the distinctions between Palm Beach County and in particular Juno Beach compared to Broward or Dade County. What else could we do as a council to back that up? What else would you, anything specific you would recommend? I know last month we put something, we did write a letter to the governor asking for some local discretion. Anything we could do at the county level or anything further you think we could do, either reiterating the prior letter or taking an additional step?
My recommendation would be to write a new letter, writing it to the mayor of Palm Beach, Mayor Kerner, and to the governor's office, taking a vote here to see if it's unanimously that we want more flexibility on our beaches and more flexibility on our openings of opening, less restrictions on our businesses, basically. Obviously, we want to do it safely, but we believe that North County is not the same as Dade and Broward.
Yeah, I think that, health and safety is the priority, but still, if we can do it in a responsible manner, we can always, I guess, draw back if we needed to, if there were health concerns at a later date. But I think we should have the local flexibility as much as possible. So I would be in favor of taking your direction for an updated letter. And I know, I would hope that Mayor Kerner would be responsive or at least take it into consideration.
Jason, I have to totally agree. I think that the Palm Beach commissioners are the ones that are making the decision, perhaps, And we really are at the mercy of towns such as Palm Beach, maybe Delray Beach, maybe what Broward's doing. And they're different. Their beaches are entirely different. And I think sending the Mayor Kearns and all the rest of the commissioners and a letter stating that we would like to see our beach reopened. Obviously, we understand the concern to the general health of the people, but I think it's time. And I also think that emailing those commissioners are important to do also, and letting them see the concerns, or the people that are reaching out to us and forwarding their letters on to the commissioners by the people, our citizens. So I'm totally in favor of that.
Peggy brings up a good point, Joe, and Len, I'd like to get your input. Do you think that it's any more persuasive or any more favorable if we make it clear that although we'd like, in terms of local discretion, while we'd like to open the beaches and take a less restrictive view, we're also prepared to go back to wherever the county is, or draw the line back if we run into an uptick in cases or see anything that threatens anybody's health and welfare.
I don't think we can do that. Len, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that our point of pressure is the county government, that we as a town can't be less restrictive than the county. Jim sent around a point of view that had been written by Hal, where Hal signaled that he was interested in the concept that during the recovery phase, Palm Beach County is different from Broward and from Dade County. Mayor Kerner today was kind of wishy-washy, I thought, in his comment. But it doesn't have to be the mayor. It doesn't have to the mayor of the county. It doesn't have to be the vice mayor of the county. It can be the entire county council. And what I would recommend is not that we seek to open the beaches in Juno Beach per se, but I think that a persuasive case can be made to open the beaches in Palm Beach County. And it's to that effect that I would direct our letters to the county level. I'd copy the state, but really, I think the county's next move might be to improve the recreational opportunities. And as Michael said during his comment to the public, we've developed a local issue, I believe, surrounding Pelican Lake and along A1A with crowding. And I do believe that if we opened up the beaches to the standard of the original executive order requiring no one to sit down, no groups of 10 or more, 6-foot spacing, I think that we would add a recreational outlet and diminish the issue of crowding.
Well, as of right now, I mean, Stu's correct. We're stuck with whatever the county's doing, unless the county wishes to allow more local discretion. But the problem you're going to have is if Juno Beach opens its beaches and our surrounding communities do not, you're going to have an influx of people into Juno Beach. And, you know, that's something that will be a drain on the town's resources. So it's something you should consider, but right now it's an all or nothing with Palm Beach County unless they determine there should be more localized control.
Stu's correct. I'm recommending a county-wide opening.
Joseph, in response to the point of view that Hal wrote, I actually wrote back to Hal, and I copied the town in on that. Was that email shared with the rest of council?
I believe it was, but I can't recall.
Okay. Well, that was an April 29 email, and that might be worth looking at in the context of preparing a letter.
To give you a little bit more background, the governor is under the governor's responsibility, but he's started up a task force, which all three mayors, Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach, are on that task force. I believe even Monroe County. So it's all 4 counties. So that's why I'm saying to get to the governor's office and to the county administration to say our beaches in Palm Beach County are different than they are in Dade and Broward.
Okay, thank you, Joe. That was my only question on that point. I think we're ready to move on to item 3 on the agenda, discussion of future events and meetings, and we'll recognize Town Manager Joe Labella once again.
Thank you, Mayor. We made a list of things to discuss in the future, meetings and events. The first thing on that list, as you can see, is item number 1, and it basically is about Mars Way. As you can recall, we had a study on Mars Way, and there's some recommendations if we should or should not put in some traffic calming devices. What we were planning on doing on March 30th was have our residents meet with our town engineer and discuss the pros and cons of putting these devices on their road for the residents of Mars Way and any of the stakeholders in that area. Obviously, we postponed that because of the pandemic. We want to get your input. Should we do this virtually, or should we hold off and do this in the future?
Joseph, why is it obvious that we held off because of the pandemic?
Because to have a roundtable discussion, we were going to have a big table in the council chambers and have invite everybody there and have this big discussion. We felt it wouldn't be fruitful at that time. As you can, on the next 2 items, you saw that even our consultant says some of these things are not well vetted when they are virtually. But that's just our opinion. If you want to continue, we will continue.
I think I asked the question at one time that if an audio meeting was 70% effective and if an audio video meeting was 85% effective, why would one choose the 0% option?
At the point of canceling that meeting, I was canceling all meetings at that point. And that was early in the process. I was canceling everything from anything in the town center, anything at the Civic Association, anything housed in the town center, anything housed in town. As you can imagine, I had an issue with Art Fest. Luckily, dealing with Len, he guided us through what we can and say and cannot say to the permitter, which was the chamber. I think obviously that was a very good decision for the chamber to do, because we had a lot of outsiders come into our town at the wrong time. So there was a lot of decisions that were questioned. This is just one of the questions. We looked at health, safety, and welfare at that time, and we made that decision.
All right, let's go through health, safety, and welfare.
Yes, sir.
Could you just comment on whose health, whose safety, whose welfare?
I look at the community, our residents, everyone.
So are you telling me that if we had a virtual meeting on this topic, we would put anyone at risk?
Yeah, on March 30th, yes. If we first of all, on March 30th, we weren't set up for a virtual at that time.
All right, let's forget the past. But
okay,
I think the question you're asking is, does the council want to schedule a new date for the workshop? And my vote would be yes, absolutely, virtually.
Thank you.
You know, Mars is going to be it's going to be an informational meeting. It's going to be a workshop with the council, with the residents from Mars Way, with staff. And I believe it'd be much more effective if it was in the council chambers rather than a virtual meeting, because I think it's going to be very confusing when you're going to have people asking questions on a virtual platform versus, being there, in the council chambers. I think it'd be much more effective. So I would prefer to not have the meeting until we can do it in the council chambers.
Jim, my response to you is that I don't think you're keeping up with life as it exists in the 21st century. And I say that because I've been on global conference meetings that have been conducted on platforms as simple as Zoom, and they do perfectly well with thousands of participants.
Well, I'll speak up. I've been on more Zoom meetings and WebEx meetings than I can ever have imagined over the last couple of months. I think that To your point, Stu, while it's better than in some respects, it's better than a 0% option. This Mars Way issue is something that, to my recollection, goes back at least the 6+ years that I'm aware of these issues. It's a long-running issue. I think the most important aspect of it, especially in a workshop setting, is going to be hearing from the public and making sure that they feel like they're being heard by our council, and that the issues they're raising are being heard by the staff, and that we as the council, from a policy-making standpoint, can get that information from the staff. I'm not opposed to trying to do a sort of partial, in some respects, of virtual and hear from folks. I just don't know, that may get us started. It may have the staff get an opportunity to look at some other alternatives that might come up, or hear something they haven't heard yet. But I also feel like we're going to need to do it in person at some point, to do it effectively and to do it, because I know if I were the resident that lived on Mars Way, and as much as I feel like this is great, I can get on YouTube, or I can write in my comment, or I can stand in line and make my public comment, I'm going to want to really feel like from my heart that I've been heard, and that this is something that you realize how important it truly is to me. And as much as that I may want it addressed as soon as possible, I also want the right decision. And so I think if we did it sort of in a partial virtual way, I'm not opposed to it. I just think we're going to end up doing it twice. And I do think we're going to end up needing to do it in person, or at least we should, to make sure that we really are giving people the access that they deserve. I think these remote meetings or electronic meetings, I agree, for making required decisions, or essential type decisions, we can all look at each other. We can all have our say. It's just different when you're in person. There really is no calling in, especially given Frank's circumstance here. We're not able to see his face. It takes a little step back there in that respect. But while I think virtually people can get their say and make their public comments, I would say even from today's public comments, we probably have quite a few folks that wrote in that, they're making an impassioned plea for certain things that they would like to see. And while we're not necessarily going to respond to those public comments, even if we were in council chambers, I do think it's important that they, based on our facial expressions and based on just the attention we're giving them, they realize that we are listening, we are hearing these things, and whether it's something comes up on a future agenda or otherwise, it's just that additional layer of personal touch that I think is also in keeping with the nature of issues in our town. If there's an absolute emergency that we need to address, I agree. Put it on a virtual meeting agenda, and let's deal with the Mars Way emergency that we need to deal with. But otherwise, I think we want to really hear from the folks. We want to come up with the right policy decision. It's taken longer than anybody would like, and it's been going on for a long time, and it's kind of mutated over that period of time. But I think it's important for those folks to really feel like they're being heard.
Jason, if I may, or Peggy,
Sure.
Go ahead. Why don't you take it?
Yeah, I feel part of the equation that we're not looking at here are the Mars Way citizens. I think that we should tentatively set this meeting if the Mars Way citizens are requesting it. Again, if the group wants to hold a workshop, I think we can easily do a hybrid of the meeting on May 27th, and we can handle that meeting like the March 22nd meeting. We should ask if that's something that they are interested in doing. And Jason, I understand your points, and postponing it is something we could do, but I hate postponing these meetings and not moving forward with things in the town that are necessary and are issues within the town. So I think I would have a tendency to maybe check with the group, and I'm sure there's citizens that will say, no, I don't feel comfortable, I'll come virtually, but they'll have the option of coming in. And we can keep them safe just like we did on the March 22nd, where we're distancing and we're letting, people in, but we have a safe distance between everyone. So I think I would tentatively set the meeting right now.
Well, Peggy, are you suggesting that we would poll the residents on Mars Way, or that we would set the meeting?
Well, I think we could set the meeting and still you could poll them first, obviously, and see what their reaction is if they want to come in and they want to have a full-blown meeting. That might not happen for a while. And do they want to delay it? So no, yes, we would want to ask them their thoughts, but also making sure they know that we could do the hybrid version of this, where you can come in, we can keep our distance and try to work that kind of a workshop out that way. And Joe, let me have your opinion on that. Is that we've never had to do a workshop from that perspective before. Do you see a way that could happen?
Yeah, so let me correct the record a couple of things. The first thing, Jim mentioned that the council would be there. The council could be there, but they were not going to produce any input because this was just a meeting with the engineer and the stakeholders, which are the residents and anyone else that wanted to be involved in that. And then that out of that meeting, out of that workshop, we would hopefully come up with a recommendation and take it to the council. Now, to do a virtual meeting in the council chambers, it's obviously going to be different. I mean, as you know, through our meeting in March, we had all those dots in the council chambers, so they would all have to sit that apart, at least 6 feet apart. We could try it. We can try to survey them. Another thing I wanted to correct the record, no one, I checked with Frank, and who's in charge of this, no one has called him and said, let's have this meeting. So no one has demanded to have the meeting. I asked them, is there anybody calling, say, when is it rescheduled? And no one has done that.
Well, we all know that 85% of the people in town don't really care about what we do day to day, but they're just pleased that somebody is at the reins. And it's really it's the 15% of people who sort of are involved in what's going on in the town that really care. So to me, what pains me is that when industry, business, most government that I'm aware of has successfully transitioned to online meetings, that we've gone for the least common denominator. We effectively have shut down our government. And to me, that's sinful. The primary responsibility of government is to govern, and we have effectively put ourselves on hold. I think we should be ashamed of ourselves.
Stuart, I don't know what you're referring to as far as putting our government on hold. Our town center is open and fully operational. Every town department is continuing to work. And to the extent that you're suggesting that somehow or another holding a virtual meeting is going to govern, and I think you have just as much of an issue that you've got folks on Mars Way that may want to be heard on this, and now's not the time or the place. They're obviously not upset enough that they're calling saying in the middle of COVID-19, I want to address this issue. That's what we're hearing from our town staff, is that is not the case whatsoever. And in fact, how do you in one breath tell people we want you to stay home, stay safe, and that you may fall into a high risk category, and in the next breath say, come on down to town hall, we're going to have a meeting on this. So
my suggestion was that we conduct a purely virtual meeting.
And I think I've made my comments on that, but to suggest that somehow there's something sinful going on here, I think.
Well, I think there is. I will repeat the word. I think it is sinful. I think we have abrogated our responsibility as a governing body of this town. I think that the 3 individuals who voted to not have a town council meeting should be accountable to the people. And I think that they should at this meeting in the next section, I guess, I guess we're talking about it now, but I want to know why we chose not to meet last month. And frankly, I want to know under whose order we're meeting tonight.
Well, I believe I set the meeting tonight, but believe I made the decision last week or the week before.
So Jason,
I-
can you explain your change of heart to me? Why last Friday did you not want to have a meeting?
Well, first, on our regular scheduled meeting, I believe that if you looked around, other municipalities in our area were continuing to cancel meetings.
I believe that is incorrect. I believe that there are some examples of that, but that the overwhelming majority of town councils met.
Stuart, you want me to explain, I'm happy to explain, but especially during a virtual meeting, I'm not going to go back and forth with you and have an argument where we talk over each other. So I think you've got other municipalities that were canceling meetings. I think as that started to change and the wave went in the other direction, I saw no problem. But to the extent that you're going to schedule a meeting and you need some semblance of a process for people to be able to make public comments and not feel like they need to come down to town center, I don't know about you. I've got a neighbor on a ventilator. I've got neighbors who lost their parents. I've got neighbors who lost their spouses. I've got folks that are dealing with these related issues. They can't go to a funeral. They can't mourn. They can't have closure in their lives. And I'm telling them, oh, we're just going to go forward as business as usual, and that's okay. And if you've got something to say, come on down to the town center. I don't think that's their priority. Their priority is making sure that they have supplies and making sure that they have food. They can't they're dealing with death in their family, and they can't have a group of friends and family over. And they're struggling with those things. And to say, I think it's nice that many of us are able to continue to live in as much of a bubble as we can create for ourselves. And that's wonderful. And I think we're all safe. Obviously, we're looking at each other. We're relatively fortunate. We don't have a hot spot. We don't have these cases. But I don't know about you, but my neighbors, my friends, my folks in my neighborhood are going through this, and it is they are acutely aware of it. And as far as the day-to-day norm and whether or not we're going to hold a virtual meeting and deal with some of these issues that are coming up, whether it's the beach closure or something else, yes, they're glad that it's going to happen, but they're not in any kind of an emergent type situation where they feel like they need it addressed right now and today. They're dealing with bigger issues. They're dealing with much more personal and acute issues. And the fact that you refer to, that somehow it's sinful. The reality is I'm on the phone with Joe. I'm on the phone with folks like Karen Leahy and Jerry, and you've got Marianne Hostin. We're making sure and trying to go down a list and see if there's anybody in town that might be feeling isolated and might need a phone call. Those are the priorities. Whether or not we hold a virtual meeting, it seems nothing less than self-important in my view. Whether or not we actually reach out and touch these folks in town and make sure that we're doing what we can to make sure that they're aware, that those are the bigger issues. So if you and I can maybe have a disagreement on this, but to refer to it as sinful and to talk about it being an abrogation of responsibility, I think people's first priority and our first responsibility is making sure people feel that health and safety are the town's priority. They're worried that law enforcement is out there and that everything is going to run as it should and that our town staff is there. I've gotten plenty of emails that really appreciate the level of contact that we've had by email. They are not particularly concerned whether or not we as a group of 5 council members are holding a virtual meeting and might want to feel important. So
I disagree. Are you done? I'll let you finish.
Go ahead.
My position is that you are our mayor, you have a responsibility. We are town council people. We have a sworn responsibility to conduct the business of government. And I believe that we failed in that last month. And I believe we should be ashamed of ourselves. I see how we put no one at harm by conducting our business virtually. If it's good enough for the Supreme Court, I would think it would be good enough for you. I have been amazed at how efficient it has been to conduct business virtually. And the fact that we have run from it and have said, well, we don't have essential business, which, by the way, is piling up. I just disagree with you fundamentally, Jason. I'm sorry.
And I disagree with you, Stu, but we can still get along.
Yes, we can.
All right.
Jason, I'd like to say something if I could. And I'm so sorry about your friends or neighbors who've been exposed and to anyone that's been affected by this. Stuart, I'm going to answer your question. I voted to have a virtual meeting when I was asked because I believe that we should never hold up the progress of our town. And of course, I believe we have to do it in a responsible way. But I think it's council's responsibility. And frankly, when we delay any issue, it can be months before we can get information or results from a request because we only meet once a month. I did ask how many of our staff were coming into the building on a daily basis. And the response was it depended on the day. On that particular day, it was 6. And then I was told the IT consultant had to work with Caitlin. And of course, you know, there was some concern there. But I did suggest that if we already had 6 people in the building on any given day, I didn't feel that staff was more impacted than they would currently be by distancing themselves. The public as well as council would not be impacted because everyone is virtually. And I also felt that the IT consultant could keep a 6-foot distance from Caitlin. And I know, Len, you referenced that the town of Jupiter canceled a couple of meetings, but they also have 2 meetings a month. So I know that they did hold at least 1 virtual meeting a month. And also Palm Beach Gardens, I didn't see online anywhere that they had canceled any of their meetings. And I know for sure that the April 2nd one was online, and they did do that virtually. So I was adamant that I thought we should continue conducting town business and having a meeting. One of the things I'd like to do is maybe discuss the possibility of clarifying this in the charter also. The reason is the charter does not look like it states if a meeting can be canceled by council. So I would assume we cannot cancel meetings. And since I did not feel it put our employees at great risk, I feel we should have abided by the charter that states the council shall have regular meetings at least once a month. It does go on to say that you can hold a special meeting by the mayor or by the majority of the council members with no less than 12-hour notice. But I'd like to look at a change to that charter because to have one individual, that being the mayor, being the only one that can cancel a meeting, I want to make sure that one individual, that being the mayor, should not be the only one. I want to clarify that which could be able to cancel a meeting. I feel it needs to be the majority of the council. I think it's okay for a mayor to call a special meeting or the majority of council to call a special meeting. But I don't believe any one person should have the authority to cancel any meetings. I think it should be the majority of council that has to do that. So I would definitely like to look at the charter on this when it's time for review.
It's not. I mean, Peggy's entirely right, if I may say. I mean, Len, I'd like your input on this. We've been.
I was going to say a majority.
May I just finish my comment?
I was going to say a majority of council members voted against having a meeting.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
these are unusual times. These are unusual circumstances. Some cities had meetings. Hyperlexa, we haven't had a meeting in 2 months because they feel that there's nothing important enough to have a meeting. It's a community by community decision. So
I would say that was an unusual vote.
It was a three council members said they did not feel they had a need to have a meeting, and that's why we didn't have a meeting. So to say that it was just Jason or, you know, that's not really fair either. But,
well, it may not be fair, but it's accurate because the official announcement said that the town manager in consultation with the mayor canceled the meeting. You and I both know that there was a secret ballot obtained.
It wasn't a secret ballot. It was it was just a poll of the council members.
Yes, it was a poll of the council by the town manager to get an opinion from the council at a time when I had sent written material to the council and it was not forwarded to council. So I am really offended by all of this. And I think I'm sorry, gentlemen. I think the leadership in this town went down the wrong pathway here, and I'm expressing my opinion.
And you are entitled to that opinion, Stu.
You're absolutely entitled to your opinion. My decision was based in discussions with our town attorney, with our town manager, who combined have over 50 years of experience, to the extent that we are in unusual times, and they are the ones with the emergency management training that go to these types of updates, that are getting the most recent updates, that have the most up-to-date information, that have the most substantive information from at the federal level, state level, county level. I'm basing my decision based on the information from the professionals. And with all due respect, while you have 2 years of council experience, and I have 6, and Peggy has 6, and we can all compare that. We have extremely adept, educated, and experienced professionals in our town. I'm not going to make a decision on something like that during unusual times, to say the least, and that impacts people's health and welfare without looking to them for counsel and without asking them questions and making a decision based on their experience, their input, and the collective experience and the input that they're receiving at higher levels and from whatever substantive source that they can obtain. So while we may disagree, that's what my decision was based on. That's what it wasn't a feeling and it wasn't a whim, Stu. That much I'll say.
Jason, I would respond by saying that it is wonderful that you listen to our professionals, that I respect our town manager, that I appreciate the input of our town attorney. But let's just remember that the town manager works for the town council, the town attorney works for the town council, and I just believe that if we as council people willy-nilly just say whatever that our manager and our attorney say we will follow, then we are not doing what is our responsibility as town council members. So I appreciate that your opinion was follow the opinion of the town manager, supported entirely by the town attorney, who should be giving an opinion to council rather than supporting town manager all the time. But he gave his own opinion.
I resent that, because the question was whether he had the authority, not whether I personally thought we should have a meeting or not. And my answer was that he did have that authority. It's not like I was advocating not to have a meeting. I just want to make that clear for the record.
Okay.
That's all.
We can go into this off camera, but I have sent around some written materials that I hope everybody has read.
I'd like to make a comment.
And the decision, I'm sorry, Jim, the decision was not made willy-nilly, Stuart. And I do resent the implication that that's how it was made. I
implied that. I apologize if that is the way it came across. I just think that we have abrogated our responsibility. You think differently. I'd like to hear from the 2 other town council members.
Okay, you're going to hear from me right now if I can get in. All right,
go ahead.
Can I speak?
Please.
Okay, at our March meeting, the council unanimously passed a resolution declaring a state of emergency. Okay, we are living in extraordinary times right now. In our lifetime until now, we've never had a pandemic. Everybody, the federal government, state government, county government, municipal government, businesses, individuals, we're all adapting and adjusting to this pandemic. When I spoke to the town manager, he said there was no essential business that had to be on the April agenda. There was nothing of importance to put on there. That's why I supported not having a meeting. It didn't make any sense. So, and I would do it again. I don't think we should have had the meeting in April. I agree with the town manager. If there was something essential, we would have had a meeting, virtual or in the council chambers. But there was nothing essential to be on the meeting. That's why I voted like I did.
Frank?
Yes, I was almost falling asleep here. But as far as virtual being present, I really don't have an opinion on that. What I do have an opinion on, though, the 6.5 years is a long time to solve something that, you can get to in a relatively expeditious way. So all I'd like to see is that this is on the next agenda, where we start moving on this thing, because 6.5 years is a little too much, guys. I think we can all agree with that. But whether it's virtual or present, I really don't have a firm opinion on that.
Jason, can I just say something? I'm perhaps the way we handled it, it should have been handled in a different way. And Len, I'm going to ask you, was there any reason why we couldn't have called a special meeting and that we could have made that decision?
No, there's no reason why you couldn't have, no.
So maybe that's the process we take the next time. Instead of doing it the way we did it, where, Joe, you called everybody and got their opinion, and it was not something that we were in contact with each other, and we were able to speak about our reasons why we would want it or why we would not. That makes a huge difference in decision making sometimes. So I think maybe going forward, we could look at calling a special meeting to decide on this, but hopefully we'll be doing virtual meetings from here on in. I don't see a reason to stop any meetings at this point, as long as we can meet virtually and it's safe for the town.
I would just add to Peggy's comment that, and you all have this in front of you in the letters that I've sent out, but I'm reading from the first sentence of the statute 25238 regarding emergency management. And it says that safeguarding the life and property of its citizens is an innate responsibility of the governing body of each political subdivision. That governing body is us.
Okay. With respect to the Mars Way traffic workshop, what I think Peggy's made her thoughts clear. I've been heard on it. Jim, do you have anything to add?
No, I feel it'd be much more productive to have it in the council chambers with the residents there.
Okay. Stu, anything to add?
No, I voted that I think we should have a virtual meeting on this topic.
Okay. What do you need from us, Joe?
Just a consensus. Caitlin, you want to do a roll call or something?
It's a consensus on if we want to reach out to the Mars Way residents to see if they want to participate virtually or non-virtually and just wait for a later date. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think that go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that sounds like let's see what the folks that are impacted the most would prefer. I think that goes along with Peggy, your suggestion.
Right.
But let's start there.
Okay, so let me do roll call real quick. Peggy, you're in agreement with that?
Yes.
Jim, are you in agreement with that? With reaching out to the Mars Way residents, see how they wish to participate or how they want to conduct the meeting?
Who are you asking?
You, Jim.
Yes, yes.
Frank, are you in consensus with that?
Yes.
Stu?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. The next item is if the council wants to proceed with May 19th or postpone it, that's the goal setting. We did reach out to Tom and we did send that email with his opinion on it. Back to you, Mayor.
Yes. Well, reading Tom's suggestion, unless I misunderstood it, I'm going to defer to his suggestion, which is that's the type of meeting that is best left for an in-person discussion. And I'm going to defer to his experience on that.
And I agree with that. It's a very informal meeting. There's a lot of give and take on all sides, and we get much more accomplished, when we're together to make our goal-setting decisions, rather than, I believe, in a virtual platform.
Let me also add, I think those meetings also become very, it does place a burden on staff. I think we ask for a lot in order to be prepared for those meetings. I think that there's also a lot of follow-up that we require of the staff, and some of it promptly and some of it over time. But I think when the comment earlier was that we've got some staff members that are working well over 40 hours a week, and I'm not sure who they are, and I'm not sure what the breakdown is, if those are folks doing public works assignments, that's one thing. If they're upper level staff that we would be relying on for this kind of either the prep for the goal setting workshop or the follow up to it, I think that's placing an additional strain on them until things can get back to a normal work schedule. But that's I don't have any further comment on that. Frank?
Yeah, we should be getting to the, we should be getting to the goal setting meeting before 2021. So I think putting it on a short schedule would be a really good idea, and I think doing it being present is much better than doing it telephonically.
So you'd be in favor of a tentative rescheduling, so at least we have something on the calendar?
Yes, I'd like to do that, and I'd like to do it before 2021.
Okay. Stu?
Well, my position on workshops in general is that we don't do enough of them. I mean, I proposed and council rejected that we do something a la Sequesta, where we have one informal meeting and one formal meeting each month. But I believe that one failed also on, I don't remember, was it 3 to 2? I just don't recall. As far as this one is concerned, I mean, my feeling is, why not me? I mean, I think it's just a shame that we're saying, oh, it's better if we wait until we all get together. I'm willing to sit down and attempt to meet and see if we can make some progress. Why are my peers unwilling to do so?
Well, I think my primary reason is our facilitator has indicated that his preference would be to do it in person.
Well, that's fine. I appreciate that, and I just think that I'll go along with the majority on the council. You've asked me to express my views, and I'm expressing my views. I think it's terrible that we have ground our function as a council to zero. I'm appalled by that. So therefore, I would vote to have a meeting independent of. I think that we should all be talking more, not less, during these periods of time. We should be leaders and not in a cave.
Okay, Peggy?
A couple of questions. Joe, when do you anticipate having normal operations?
Good.
That's a great question. We know the stay-at-home measure is expiring on May 8th, so hopefully we'll get some more guidance over the summer. So things are changing on a weekly basis, so we'll know things more by the end of the month if we can have a good virtual hybrid meeting where we actually do meet in the council chambers. I don't have the answer for that yet.
So even though it expires on May 8th, you feel that staff will not be coming back to work after that on a full-time basis? You still feel you would keep the distancing at the center?
It's too early to tell.
Okay, do you feel that having the goal setting would place a burden on staff?
Yes.
You do. All right. I think that I do feel that council members need to attend in person. I think it's very important for Mr. Bradford to be able to see us, to be able to talk to us, see our reactions. But I do also feel that we should try to set something. I think that not setting these until the next meeting on May 27th just delays it even more. So perhaps we set the goal setting workshop, and then we can also take a look at it. Maybe it's right after the May 27th meeting, or maybe it's right before that. But I think that we're going to get back, and I think that even if it's goal setting, it's just the 5 of us typically. We could have a virtual public viewing of this. We could also separate like we did the hybrid before. So if all of us, and that's a good question for the 4 of you, who is going to come into the next meeting? Are you guys planning on doing it virtually? Do you feel that you're ready to come in? Because I personally want to come in to the town center and do what we did in March, in the March 22nd meeting. I would be there and be separated. So if we're all there and Mr. Bradford is actually there and we're all separated, is there any reason why we can't tentatively plan this? So I guess it's the comfort level of the council members.
Well, I'm very comfortable. I'm in favor of postponing it until we're able to meet in the council chambers, and the sooner the better.
Right, but Jim, do you feel uncomfortable having a hybrid that you came into the March 22nd meeting? Do you feel like you could come to the May 27th meeting?
Oh, you mean in the town center?
In the town center.
Absolutely.
distancing like we did.
Yes.
Jason, do you feel like you could come to that meeting? Because this might answer the question just by how we feel about coming to the next meeting.
I could. I think there's since that March meeting, the recommendation is to wear face coverings. I don't know if that's going to help with the being there in person. I don't know if that's something we're supposed to consider. I don't know if the county is going to continue to adhere to that recommendation. I don't know that. I have no problem trying to put it on the calendar and hope to be there in person, but I think we're making a decision that's still a bit premature.
Stuart, do you feel like you would want to be there? I'm just curious how everybody's feeling about the next council meeting.
Yes, my concern about the last town council meeting was, one, we were under an advisory that people 65 years or older or immunocompromised people should be at home. I'm one of the 65-year-old and older individuals who did attend. I think we're a majority on the council. And we have one immunosuppressed individual. So I suspect that, yes, I would personally attend. And I think the hybrid meeting worked okay. The problem was, just like this meeting tonight, this is not a virtual meeting in the sense that our citizens can communicate in any form to participate in this discussion, other than by sending in written comments. And effectively, it was the same way last month. We did have a limited seating for people, and I don't think we really reached overflow, but there were many people who were afraid to come out. And I think one of our responsibilities is to maximize the ability of our citizens to participate in government to the extent that they wish.
And Frank, I mean, I know it's a little tougher for you. I don't know if you had planned anything in advance and if you would attend the May 27th meeting or if you wanted to do it virtually. Have you thought of that?
I'd be all for the next meeting as long as things are roughly the way they are now or a little better. I mean, if some tragic stuff happens and there's a big change in what's going on, we might have to rethink it, but I'm all for getting together personally rather than on a telecommunications basis.
So Jason, considering that we don't have a lot of public input at this particular goal setting workshop, perhaps we should go ahead and set it up tentatively and check our calendars and put it on. And if something changes, we could always cancel it. But Joe, I know you have a little bit of a concern, so maybe we do something after May 27th and just start gearing up to it, because I think we're almost complete with all of our goals and our objectives. I think most of us have gone through that and we've either submitted them to Tom or will be submitting them.
Just so I'm clear, Peggy, Frank, I think Peggy was asking you if you'd be comfortable being in person at Town Center.
Yeah, I wouldn't see a problem with that as long as we're at least where we are in terms of what's happening with the virus, or hopefully better in a 3 or 4 weeks. I have no problem with it.
Okay, I thought you said something about meeting remotely, so.
No, I mean, not for this one.
Okay. All right. What about scheduling something for, want to try and do it early June?
I think that would be great. I don't have a lot on my schedule right now. How about you guys?
Jason, I think that's good. I think the sooner the better.
I'm with the vice mayor. The sooner the better.
Okay.
What if we did June 3rd? That's a week after our council meeting. Give staff an additional week. Really, a lot of this is based on Mr. Bradford and his organization. Correct, Joe?
Yes, ma'am. It's a different process. It's a new process, so I really don't know what to expect. The last goal setting there was a lot of work put in by staff, but this one might not be the same. So I'm not sure.
Okay, so can we look at, Joe, are you okay looking at June 3rd? What do we typically do? I think we usually start around 4.
Yes, sir. And I'm looking at my calendar. I'm good on June 3rd.
I'm good on June 3rd.
The same for me.
Fine by me.
Okay, so if we will tentatively schedule for June 3rd, if we can, I think that's also to Peggy's suggestion, we'll sort of take either an informal or formal type assessment at the meeting on the 27th in May. And if things are progressing in the right direction, we'll stay on track for it. If there's any kind of a concern on Frank's part or anybody else's part or Mr. Bradford's part, we'll reassess.
Sounds good.
Okay, next item for discussion. Joe, do you want to, sorry, I didn't mean to step in here, but the postponement for the report on the undergrounding for the utilities. And I think that was also, Mr. Bradford had a similar suggestion. He preferred to do that in person.
Yes, sir.
And do you have any further comment on that or
No?
any input? Okay.
And I think the information that we've gotten from Tequesta and from Bradford and from other people has been very quality information, and it's been very comprehensive. My suggestion is that we permanently postpone the underground utilities. This is a project we don't need. Any way we want to look at it, it doesn't make any sense, and it's just taking up a lot of time. It's never going to happen. You heard it here. And it just doesn't make any sense that we continue just tooling around with this thing, in my opinion.
Well, I think it's a very prejudicial statement at the outset. I was the one who felt that we should at least study this issue, and that if we didn't study it, we were making a mistake and again abrogating our responsibility. To take the position up front, it's never going to happen. No one's asking for it. It's a total waste of time. I as a council person, I just think that's a horrible position to take.
I think it's a very reasonable position to take. Give me a good reason why we do it.
Well, that's not the topic for this meeting. The question is whether we should be discussing it or not.
Stu, it's very difficult to be against a study. I mean, how can you be against a study? But the study is taking up our time.
Well, the reason is that we're not meeting. We have a backlog of business. It's not just the underground utilities, it's our whole agenda which has been set back.
All right, Jim.
Speaking about the underground utilities, I agree with the Vice Mayor Pro Tem Fay. I've never had a resident ask me, when is the town going to underground the power lines? Never. Today, with the uncertainty in the economy, I believe the last thing that people want is an increase in their property taxes. And I support tabling the undergrounding indefinitely. I agree 100% with the Vice Mayor Pro Tem. I think it's going to take a lot of time, and I see it going nowhere. I'm done.
Peggy?
I feel that we should defer to Mr. Bradford's decision on holding it later at a meeting, but I think we should take a look at this on May 27th. I really don't feel, and I've said this many times, this is not a council member's decision. This is the citizens' decision. And for us to have an opinion on this is one thing, but you really can't have an opinion until you've heard all the facts. And since we represent the citizens, I think it needs to go to a referendum to the citizens, and they will vote. They will decide whether they want to have it or not. And I think we owe them that, whether we like the idea or we don't, or, if we're for it or against it. Everyone has an opinion, but I think it's really something that the citizens need to make that decision.
I guess I'm not, I'm hearing Stu, and I'm hearing the vice mayor and vice mayor pro tem, and there's, you know, strong opinions on either side. I come out someplace closer to the middle on this. I'd like to study the issue, but I also see the point. Is now the time we need to be studying the issue. The one thing that we do know, wherever we come out, wherever the citizens may come out, this is an expensive proposition. And a lot of this is going to be a cost benefit type analysis. And I think that trying to engage in that, I don't think we need to be rushed into it, and I don't know that we need it on the next agenda. It's not critical by any means, and I think to move it along towards, I'm fine with studying it, and I think we just take Mr. Bradford's lead on when the next step in that process should be. If he's comfortable, you know, with the next meeting, maybe I feel differently at this point. I think, you know, his indication was that he would like to do this in person. He feels like it's got to be more of a robust discussion and consideration. I don't, you know, I don't know that we need to, putting that one off another 30 days or something doesn't, I'm not seeing it as the extreme, the town's coming to a grinding halt on anything. Far from essential. It is something that would be bigger, broader issues and longer range issues. I would not even be opposed if we worked it into the goal setting workshop for discussion purposes with Mr. Bradford. So I think we can have that kind of a discussion. We can take an extra bit of time and try to work it into the goal setting. But I don't think that to be in a rush to put it on some sort of a proposal or to make any kind of a decision. Stuart, as you've said time and again, this is a bigger picture issue and something that, you know, we do need to study it, and I don't disagree with you on that. I just don't know that we need to do it, you know, amongst other issues where from a time standpoint and a focus standpoint, it's not a high priority item at the moment.
And Jason, my comment would only be that I think we put ourselves in this position because we canceled the meat of our agenda last month. There are other items. Let's take Charter Review Committee, for example. The Charter Review Committee met, has a report. When is that going to be presented? When are we going to do Pelican Lake beautification and amenities? When are we going to do the ecology of Pelican Lake? When are we going to do the review of organizations for council participation? I mean, we are just backing up our governing process.
Yeah, I disagree with you. I think under the circumstances for us to have a 30 or 60 day pause while people are focused on, again, what I think are bigger, more significant issues in their daily lives. And given the circumstances, both from a health standpoint, from an economic standpoint, trying to let some of that dust settle is not the worst thing in the world, so that cooler heads can prevail and we can get back to making policy decisions that would make sense, as opposed to feeling like we're distracted by other issues that are going on at the moment. So I don't see a 30 or 60 day pause being particularly problematic on a number of these issues. But if there was an essential item, whether it was 9 days ago or an essential item tonight, or, you know, saying these are not significant, these are not important, and that we as a town council don't have decisions to make. I'm saying that essential means just what it says, essential. And these are issues that are being brought up. And while I'd like to get things back on track, I think you do it in a methodical fashion, and you put it back and you deal with things on a priority basis, and you be responsible about it in the process. I don't see the problem with that. I don't think that's an abrogation of anything. I think that's just being handling the situation appropriately. And it's a situation that if anybody has the training for it, if anybody has the background for an unprecedented set of circumstances, it's the years and years of experience that we've got town staff. And anytime I've talked to Joe anytime I've talked to Len or the staff, it's basically steering me back towards, if it's essential, let's address it. If it's non-essential, let's hit the pause button for a moment. And I don't see any reason why I need to disavow that advice and that recommendation under the circumstances. So I think we're doing the best we can. I think most of the citizens that I've spoken to understand. I think some of them, as I've brought up issues, whether it's Pelican Lake or some other issues, everybody loves the lake. Everybody thinks it's important, myself included. But their attitude is there are far larger issues. And if the last 60 days hasn't taught us that, there are a lot of significant issues, and that, you know, you'll get to the lake when you get to the lake. And that's the feedback I'm getting from a lot of folks.
Jason, my comment simply would be that it is the responsibility of the town council to administer during periods of crisis like the one that we're in. And again, I would say for the last time, I hope, that in my opinion, we've fumbled the football once again by not having our meetings and by allowing the business of the town to continue to back up.
So, Stuart, you've been very clear about your opinion, but now is not the time to talk about repairing park benches. That's my opinion.
And Jason, I tend to disagree with you. I think that government should be maintained, and that we are failing by having discussions about having meetings rather than by conducting our business.
I think we're prioritizing. Let's move on. I think.
Can I just make a comment? I think that by having a virtual meeting, we're capable of handling these issues. If, you know, the problem is the public and speaking, and hopefully by May 27th, we're going to get back to hopefully semi-normal. We did have a pause in March. We did have a pause in April, and now we're coming into May 27th, which is 3 weeks away. And we do have to get back to some sort of normal. I think we have to continue to operate, you know, the town and making decisions for the town and not holding off a third month or a fourth month because we're not totally back. I think holding these meetings virtually are acceptable. I think there's probably a lot of people in town that are listening to these meetings, and I think it's positive from that perspective because more people can hear what's going on in town. And I think that we should start moving forward to actually getting some of these items on the agenda for at least the May 27th meeting and getting back to normal.
Okay, what, from a consensus standpoint, what, I think you and Stuart were in favor of having the undergrounding utilities, but Peggy, you were also deferential to Mr. Bradford's suggestion of doing it in person. So where are you coming out on that?
I would prefer to have Mr. Bradford tell us if he'd like to do it May 27th, and then we can take it from there. If that's acceptable to him and we're all there, I think it's going to be dependent, and it can go on the agenda based on all those factors.
All right, Stuart, you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. I think that we've now punted on April completely, and we'll take it up at our next meeting, whether it's in person. It needs to be done soon, in my opinion, and I'm willing to wait.
And Frank, I think I know where you stand, but do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I think I've made my position very clear over the last few months.
Very clear. Jim?
No, I made mine clear.
Okay, let's see what Mr. Bradford has to say about it, and we can go from there. Is that okay, Joe?
That should be our decision. Isn't it our decision?
Yeah, it's our decision, but I also want to make sure the staff's okay with it.
I took it off mute. I'm sorry. Mayor, exactly what would you like us to ask Tom?
Well, I think see if Tom would be available for the May 27th meeting to give us an update on the undergrounding.
Okay.
And if I understand that, you know, if we're not sure whether we're going to do a virtual meeting or an in-person meeting, I think it would be contingent upon us being able to go forward with some kind of an in-person meeting with social distance being observed.
Okay, let me rephrase. So you're saying your opinion is if we can have a hybrid virtual meeting on the 27th, you would be in favor of having undergrounding on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay. I assume the other four are going to vote the same way, so I think that's a consensus, correct?
No,
Well,
no.
I think
I
you've
don't.
got-
I'm against it totally.
It's
I don't think we
pre-
need it.
Okay, let's ask for a roll call. Caitlin, the question is if Tom is available and we can do a virtual hybrid meeting in the council chambers, we will do it on the 27th of May.
Well, wait a second, Joe. I think this is more geared towards what Mr. Bradford decides he'd like to do. If he would want us all present at the meeting, which it sounds like we're all going to be present at the May 27th meeting, then that would be something that I'd like to ask that question to him. And then if we're all going to be at the meeting and we, assuming that everyone said that they would be, then we could put it on the agenda. But that's a decision that I don't know if we need do we need a consensus on that one?
Well, Joe, I'm sorry. What I got was the consensus was to ask Mr. Bradford if he would be willing to come to the May 27th meeting to present the undergrounding utilities. And then if so, then they would do the hybrid setting with social distancing.
Again, that's what I heard, but that's, is that correct?
But I think I would prefer to let Mr. Bradford make that decision. What do the rest of you think? I mean, he's the one that's going to be presenting. If he doesn't want to do a hybrid version, then I think we should allow him to say like all the members there, and that's the decision on whether you put it on the agenda.
I don't know what else we need. This is from Mr. Bradford. He put together a very fine report, a 42-page report that is extremely comprehensive. If anybody took the time to read it, they could come away with what do they think? Is this something that's palatable to Juno Beach? Is this something that's possible? Is this something we need? I think he put together a great report, and so did the mayor of Sequester when he was here. So we have a ton of information. What else do we need?
It's just the presentation that Mr. Bradford's going to do, Frank. It's not about what we were presented. It's about him making the presentation and answering questions. So that's why we need to put it on the agenda so that we can all do that.
Okay, I don't think it belongs there, but that's just my own opinion, obviously.
All right, Stu?
Well, I defer to Tom. If Tom, he's been wonderful as a free consultant on this project. I mean, we did hire him to run our workshop. However, I've been delighted by his input to date, and I would follow his recommendation here.
Okay, I'm fine deferring to Tom as well. Let's see what he has to say.
Okay.
Okay. Joe, I think we're up to item 4.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Item 4 are future events that we've canceled. Obviously, if you have any issue with that, let us know. But right now, just for the Coffee with the Cop, which is the mayor's hours, and the annual town picnic, which is the first Friday in June. The item number 5, I think we discussed that a little bit already. Agrees that when we can and when it's safe, we'd like to go to a virtual hybrid method as we did in March. With, for the audience, they can participate virtually, but whoever wants to show up to the meeting, they can, as long as social distancing is adhered to, and we will be at the council chamber. So that's our recommendation as staff, and I think I heard that you guys agree. Is that correct?
Well, I have a minor issue that staff recommendation calls for the hybrid meeting to be streamed on the internet. And I think that this meeting is being streamed on the internet, but it makes it a passive meeting for the residents. And I think that we should have two-way capability so that individuals can dial in. They can dial in through a member of staff to be screened so that we don't get into any of the meeting bombings that our vice mayor alluded to. I mean, we don't want that, but we do want our town to be able to listen in and to participate. So I would like to have a two-way audio link if we, as part of our streaming, I would like to be able to hear from our people remotely.
May I answer that, Mayor?
Yeah, please, Joe.
Okay. Obviously, the platforms are changing so quickly. Just in the last 2 weeks, Zoom has come so far as a lot of people are actually recommending Zoom, where in the beginning, they were not recommended because of the hacking issues and other issues. Now their pricing has gone down considerably for government, and they actually allow people to virtually go into this waiting room, and you can allow them into the meeting as you'd like. So let's say we have an ordinance on the agenda. Obviously, we have to take public comment on an individual item like that on the agenda item, on the agenda. So we can ask anyone who wants to comment on item number 5, which is an ordinance. We can bring them back into the meeting. So that's that platform. We've been talking to our consultant. We'd like to go to that platform. We're going to work on that for our next meeting, which is Zoom. The costs have come down considerably, and it offers some new features where you can. Another problem is you wouldn't believe this, but besides hacking, people are doing inappropriate things on these videos. So don't want to go into specifically what they are. So if that happens, you can immediately take them out of the meeting. So so all these things are just evolving so quickly. But right now, the platform recommended by our IT person is going to Zoom, which it wasn't at the beginning of the month. So we're going to go and research Zoom, which will allow those features that Stuart's asking for.
And Joe, I'm going to make a comment on that real quick because I think that many of us have experience with Zoom from governmental meetings, other meetings that we've attended. I think they have, or they will be working out any issues. I think it's a better platform from the ease of use to signing in. You get in almost immediately. And so it's if we're using something that's not as effective, or we don't have the tools that we need from the perspective of the citizens, I think we needed to look at Zoom. So I'm very, very happy that we're going to be doing that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Me too.
And this could be long-term also. I mean, these type of platforms, we have to look at the future and what it could bring. And so, you know, from a long-term perspective, that's something that we should have whatever the best platform is that we need to use virtually.
And I would like to add to Peggy's comments that in a community, which is a small town with a large seasonal population, the ability to allow our citizens to listen to our meetings, whether they're in France or whether they're in Vermont during the summer, is a wonderful thing. I really think that we should be adapting into the 21st century as have nonprofits, as has business, as has other governmental entities. So I've made my point, I think, very clearly. Instead of being afraid of this technology, I think we should be embracing it.
And Stuart, that was going to be in my comments because I'd like to see us continue permanently with some kind of video aspect of this for when season comes and people are leaving, if they ever do start to travel again. I think it's important that they do have the ability to watch our council meetings.
Okay, and participate.
All right, Jim, anything to add?
No.
Frank?
I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
Peggy, you want to repeat it?
I can summarize.
Go ahead, Jim.
It's basically what we've decided already. We're going to have a hybrid virtual meeting at our next meeting. Hopefully, if everything stays the same, we're going to be social distance in the council chambers. We're going to broadcast it virtually out to the world. And we're going to look into trying to enhance features for our residents to make comments.
Sounds like an admirable goal.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Anything else, Joe?
The only thing that came up, and we didn't put on this list, was the P&Z meetings. We are planning on having a P&Z meeting in June. That's why it didn't, that wasn't not on the list. We're going to proceed in June as normal.
Okay. So
and everything else on all those upcoming items, we're going to have them on the agenda for June. I mean, for March, for May. I'm sorry, for May 27th. It's a long day, May 27th.
Okay, you have what you need on that discussion item.
Yes, sir.
All right, with that, comments from the town manager, you're back on, Joe.
Okay, let me start off with some good news by change. We distributed an Inspector General report. Normally, when the Inspector General does an audit over an 18-month process, they looked at our oversight under contract administration with our purchase of our P&Z software. They had no recommendation or comment. They thought we were in full compliance. So very good news to our staff. We're all excited about that. It took a long time for them. They went over some soup to nuts, as you can see in the report. And good news is they had no comments, and a lot of cities don't get good news like this. So very proud of the staff. The second item is on the letter on my update. Did we actually get a consensus? Should we send a letter out to the mayor of Palm Beach, Kerner, and CC all of the commission and the governor's office on seeking flexibility on a county level on our beaches and our businesses?
Yes, I thought that was clear.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Then we're good.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor.
Comments from the town attorney?
No, sir. Thank you, Mayor.
Comments from staff?
No, sir.
Okay. Comments from the council? Stu?
The only thing I would comment with regard to the letter is that the letter that I personally sent to Hal in response to his op-ed piece, I just would like that to be reviewed when the letter is being crafted. But I do support the idea of putting pressure on the county to reopen their beaches. And I think that in particular it should be addressed to the county mayor, the county vice mayor, and because they can individually do this, is my understanding. But it probably will come from the county commission as a whole. I think we're ready for social distancing on our beaches. I also agree that it would be a mistake to first of all, it's not legal for us to do it by ourselves. And I think that if it's done by the entire county, it will take pressure off of our individual beaches. So that should be the leadership position we take as a town.
Okay. Any other comments?
Stu, I agree with that. And Joe, that letter, will it be going out this week, hopefully? Joe?
On mute.
We lost Joe.
Joe, you're on mute.
Okay, sorry about that all. Yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't go out this week, Jim.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If I could ask a question, Joe, because of the virus, there are some things that are going to affect our budget. Like our bed tax down to nothing. There are a lot of other places, sales of real estate is down or slightly a whole lot down. Have you put together anything yet as to what the effect of the virus is on our year?
Another great question, Frank. Nothing formally, but I can talk about it a little bit. Obviously, on the expense side, I did put a note out that we don't really have any material effects on our expenses. On our revenue side, they could be significant. The good thing is we have that rainy day fund that other municipalities do not have. And another good thing, a lot of our revenues do come from ad valorem, not from sales tax. So anything related to sales tax, especially on a state level, a lot of their budget is on a sales tax. is going to be hit pretty good. So our budget is roughly $300,000 on sales tax out of a $6 million budget. So it's like 5%. So it's really not a material number. But if it goes down by 30, 40%, as you can see, that would be a significant amount of money. Also on investment earnings, we're going to take a hit on that. On real estate, it's a little early. You have to break it up. Residential, they're saying right now it's going to have a minor effect. Obviously, they can't tell if this keeps going on and on and on. It could have a 10 to 15% effect on market value, which is not appraised value. Obviously, there's a big difference there. So it might have a minor effect on residential. On office, on commercial, obviously there's office, industrial, and retail. As you can tell, retail, some things are booming, like the Home Depot shopping centers and Publix and Costco are doing very well. But on the other hand, anything that has to do with retail apparel is really struggling. Industrial, we don't have any industrial. I wish we did, because they're doing really good for e-commerce. They're doing excellent. What the big hit is going to be office, commercial office. As a lot of you have stated tonight, times have changed, and some of it might change forever. So people might be working from home or at least virtually more often, and people are going to be shy at investing in office or renewing large office spaces. So that might have a material effect. So we're concerned about that on commercial office.
All righty. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Frank.
But I assume we'll be dealing with that in the normal budget process over the course of the summer.
Exactly. And we're starting the budget process already. And again, most of our revenues come from property taxes, and there's a lagging effect. So we won't even have it this year as a concern. It'll probably be next year if there's a concern. Let
me ask a question about the assessor. Is there an assessment this summer, or will this?
The assessment's based on January 1st, so there's no effect.
No effect.
No effect. There's always a lagging effect when it comes to property taxes issues. So hopefully, I don't believe we're going to have a V-shaped recovery. I don't believe we're going to have a U-shaped recovery. I don't know the letter in the alphabet that we're going to have. But hopefully we recover sooner than later, and we have less of an effect on real estate.
Five minutes more.
Does that answer your questions?
Yes.
Thank you.
Frank, comments from the council? Frank?
No, I don't have any. Thank you.
Okay. Peggy, comment?
Yes. Joe, thank you for that. That's pretty much, that was really helpful to hear all of that. And I think as far as the real estate end of it, that's in line with what Chip is saying from the government or the intergovernmental committee meetings. Hopefully it's not going to affect our residential so much, and that'll keep our ad valorem taxes in place. But thank you for that. That was really nice to hear. So I want to first of all say about Jack Nauer. I want to say that our thoughts and prayers are with his family. He's going to be so missed in the town of Juno Beach by all, and I know he's looking down on us with grace by his side. Jim, when it's your turn, I just have a question on, you asked for information on the special magistrate. Just let us know why you did that. I wasn't quite sure why. Ecology, I want to make a quick acknowledgement that based on the last meeting, that they have stopped chemical decomposition, spraying treatments, and that we are cleaning up the dead debris in the lake. I also want to make sure that we can get this on the agenda for the May 27th meeting. I want to touch on the lake beautification for just a minute, because I think we all ended up receiving a letter from Collins Whitfield, and the hope is that everyone read it. I want to thank staff for their quick response from Collins' presentation. It was so nice to see the bollards and the lights painted, as well as the straightening of the tree memorial stones, which Collins addressed in his letter. Talking to Tony about that, he is going to be looking at ways to maybe keep them straight based on the letter that Collins wrote. The gazebo is now on everyone's radar. So I'd like to make some suggestions for the next meeting so that we're not waiting a month and a half to get the answer. And instead of keeping it, I think right now we have a yellow area around it. We have we've sectioned it off, right, Joe? So that
Yes.
no one can get into the.
Yes, ma'am.
depot.
Yes.
I think that we should do what Colin suggested and look at the stringers underneath the benches and see if we can salvage it. And if not, maybe start preparing 3 bids for fixing it and also for replacing it before the next meeting so that we can keep moving on that end of it. I know we can wait on the concrete slabs. Tony's in the process of fixing the benches, but I'd like everyone to think a little bit about the memorial stone idea on the sidewalk for the next meeting. Joe and Tony had a great idea about putting a section up around the lake area on the grass area. And from that, we kind of had the idea of putting a wall on the backside of the town center or somewhere around the lake. I think this gives a tribute to our citizens as well as it's historical for the town. So I'd love the council to think about what Colin put in his letter and decide if this is a good idea, if you'd like to make another suggestion, and perhaps bring those forward at the next meeting. And hopefully we'll be able to discuss this more in detail on our May 27th meeting. I also want to talk a little bit about quality control. We have to make sure that we have quality control in any construction process, because as a council, as we know, we have hundreds of people coming to us and saying, well, what about the quality of this job and what happened here and why is this like this? And I think it's important to make sure that prior to giving out any final payment for any job, that the job is thoroughly looked over. And I've heard this many times over the last 3 years. And so it's a vital process by staff that they should be taking. I want to go through a little committee updates. Sustainability Committee, Chip mentioned that from Jupiter Inlet Colony, he told us that the referendum on repairing the water infrastructure was postponed because obviously it's not a good time to hold a referendum. Chip also made another comment about the lack of boats in the water, and he's seeing a lot more sea life, and Thompson grass is coming back. I was able to listen to the BBB meeting, and Commissioner Nikki Fried gave a good speech on Florida's Agriculture and Consumer Affairs. Stuart, I think you were listening in on that meeting also. And she did mention she wants everyone to buy Florida grown to help our farmers in the state. Highlights from Katie Perry at FAU said that they were funding and their funding initiatives could be at risk, which was echoed by Palm Beach State College, that they were losing their funding. All students ended up with laptops, which is really, really, really nice and so amazing. It's interesting to listen to each town discuss a little what is happening within their own communities. So it was really good to have that kind of format within, our governmental affairs and our intergovernmental meetings. Riviera Beach stuck out as a town that had thoroughly vetted what was happening with the COVID-19 virus, where they were going. Their economic plan included maintaining their existing tax base, which I'm sure we'll be discussing later on during our meetings. I did discuss at that meeting that it's human nature to want to put everything back the way it was and back to normal, but things have changed. So I don't know if any of us can expect it to go back to normal totally, especially with our small business and our land. As Joe has said, we have to worry about office space. We have to worry about commercial a little bit more. And I just heard that 1 in 5 businesses, restaurants at least, are probably not going or are going to reopen, 1 in 5. So we might see a lot of restaurant closings. So, we need just to make sure that Juno Beach is preparing for changes. And how do we execute those? How do we help with our businesses now? And I want to say it did bring tears to my eyes to see the first responders. That included Juno Beach police officers from Jupiter to Cuesta, Jupiter Inlet Colony. They were providing breakfast and coffee to Jupiter Medical Center. And that parade of sirens and red lights to thank and to show them support was really moving. So hopefully everyone had a chance to see that. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, may I interrupt?
Yeah, go ahead, Chip.
To assist Peggy on this, she had one request in there, was to get 3 bids on the gazebo there. So I would need consensus from the county on the council. Do we want to get 3 bids on? Tony's not here to explain why what our recommendation is going to be, but getting 3 bids in 3 weeks might be difficult, but there was a request in there. So do you want to take a consensus on that, or talk about it when we talk about it? And this is going to be on the agenda on that is, so we'll be talking about that on May 27th, but Tony's not here.
All right. Is it your preference to wait until Tony can update us on what the recommendation is, or I think Peggy's asking that this happen before the next meeting?
Correct. She asked to get 3 bids.
Joe, you're cutting in and out on my screen. Is everyone hearing him okay?
It's a little choppy, but I was able to make it out. What if we, from a consensus standpoint, Peggy, I understand your ask, but I think staff's telling us that it might be difficult under the circumstances to get it done in 3 weeks. Would you be amenable to a similar ask, but with a best efforts, so that if they only got 2 bids or only got 1 bid, at least we get the feedback on that?
Sure, and I think that the point is we don't know if we need to fix it or replace it at this point without bringing those benches up and seeing what the damage is underneath on the stringers. So I think we just try at this point, though, to get bids on replacing and fixing it. If we're not able to get 3 bids, then perhaps we have to wait until the next meeting. But I do think we should have at least 3 bids on that.
What are you looking for in terms of direction, Joe?
Well, again, this is not my subject, but I'll try to summarize for Tony. We did get 3 bids on redoing the benches and basically, no, we got 2 bids actually on redoing the underground structure of that gazebo. Then it was discussed, we might want to get the opinion, because this gazebo is over 20 years old, of the building inspector. The building inspector went out there and basically said it would not be wise to put money into that structure. It's cheaper just to replace it. So we did get 2 bids. We can show you what those 2 bids are, but I do have a right. Again, Tony's going to present this on May 27th, but I believe what he's going to present is the recommendation from the building inspector to, if you want to proceed with a gazebo, to purchase a new one.
Excuse me,
Okay.
I could be totally wrong, but when we're looking at the gazebo for the park across the street, we got horrendous numbers, mostly from the town, of putting a gazebo in there. It was just totally out of scope completely. So I think we should spend time on what kind of a gazebo we want and what are we willing to pay for it. The prices have gone from $30,000 to $120,000, $150,000. It's crazy. We started off with some big numbers. And as far as I know, thanks to Peggy, we got something reasonable finally put in. So I'd be very careful about what we're doing with the gazebo. And I think it's worthwhile spending a little bit of time to make sure. If it needs repair, fine. If it needs new, fine. But I think we need to get some very sharp bids from 3 companies before we do anything.
Agreed, Frank. And Joe, have we actually looked at the stringers underneath?
Yes,
Had somebody taken those benches off?
Again, I wasn't ready for this, but I believe the strings are rotten. So the strings are rotten. I believe the building inspector said that the roofing structure needed some work. To buy a prefab small gazebo, because this gazebo is maybe 8 feet in diameter. I don't know, 8-10 feet. It's cheaper just to buy new. Again, I'm not really prepared to see if we have to put footers down or. Just so everybody knows, this is the little gazebo that's next to the very large gazebo on the south part of the lake. We had this gazebo there before we built the large gazebo. So do we need to have, the first question I have is, do we need to spend money on the small gazebo, because it really is being replaced by the large gazebo? So these are things that will be discussed on the May meeting.
And Joe, I agree. There might be a reason not to replace it at all, but we do need to have all the information. We need to have the information on what
I believe he's
to replace, and then also to maybe not have it at all. So just as long as we have the facts, and I don't think that you can look at the stringers unless those benches are off. If you look underneath, you're not going to see the impact of any damage or lack of damage. So just make sure that we have lifted those benches off and looked totally underneath of the structure, because I don't think Buck had done that originally, is what I'm saying.
I'm getting texts from staff. They're great. It's a 12 feet in diameter gazebo, and Buck did mention that the stringers, he did somehow look at them, and they are rotting. They're rotten. So, again, I would vet this out at the next meeting. We have 2 bids at least on replacing the benches and the stringers and stuff like that. So we'll discuss it at the next meeting. I think that's appropriate.
Okay. Couldn't tell if that was Frank or or Kathy. That was, okay, so we'll pick it up at the next meeting, and staff will get us whatever bids or estimates, and also a recommendation on replacement or even non-replacement, and some other suggestions.
Yes, we'll look at all the numbers again and see if we need to get more bids. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask everyone if they can go on mute if you're not talking, because we're getting a lot of feedback. No. Thank you.
Okay, Jim, comments from the council?
Good.
Good. I've got, one, I'm going to save any comment about Jack Newer's passing for when we're in person. I just think that's, I miss him. Want to give a big thank you to combination of Karen Leahy, Jerry Glynn, and Marianne Hosta. They undertook an effort in the March and April timeframe to identify any folks in town that I know I alluded to this earlier. They identified some folks in town that might be feeling isolated and might not be on the email chain or anything else for town. And just made sure that they received a phone call, let people know that they had neighbors and friends in town that were reaching out just to make contact with them, let them know that people were here if they needed anything. That was also, I think from a timing standpoint, that's when it was difficult for folks to get into the grocery store or even find things in the local grocery stores. And at the same time watching the economy melting down in the process. And it's just a really important time, I think, to touch base with folks. And on a more, that's one positive, and I just want to thank those folks for really undertaking that effort and communicating with one another to get there. And from what I'm seeing, we're the one positive of not having the beaches open is the sea turtles apparently are finding it wide open, and we're looking at record sea turtle nests and a lot of positive information that they're enjoying their spring break and not having people on the beach. And that's the Marine Life Center always is monitoring that, and I think we're hearing some positive information about that. So with that, I think we conclude the comments from the council.
Did I get an opportunity to make a comment?
I thought you started us off, Stu.
Oh, I don't know. I guess if I did, I just want to end by saying that I want to give credit to the town staff for putting together this virtual meeting. I think even in its rudimentary form, we accomplished an awful lot. I think we were able to actually, I see into the eyes of our council people better than I can when I'm sitting up on the podium. So I actually see more emotion rather than less. I think the shame is that we didn't conduct the business of the town at some point during this month, because I believe we had the capability of doing that. And my final comment would be that the standard for deviating from our normal procedure is not the standard of what is essential business or not. It's the standard of health, safety, and welfare. And I've said it once, and I want to say it again in conclusion, that I'm firmly in the belief that the welfare of the community suffered by us not meeting last month, and that was, in my opinion, a position where I disagree with the mayor, I disagree with the vice mayor, and I disagree with the mayor pro tem, but I appreciate that it was their decision not to have a meeting. So I live with that.
All right, with no further comments, we are adjourned at 7:52. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take
Thank
care,
you.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.